The ACLU has long been synonymous with freedom of speech. They defended it from even the most hated groups like the Nazis, the Klan, even the Jehovah's Witnesses. It was never about what you were saying. It was about the liberal principle of your right to say it. Well, they have new guidelines now, namely that before taking a case, ACL lawyers should consider if the case might cause offense to marginalized groups, or if a potential client's values are contrary to our values. Contrary to our values? Your values are free speech.
You'd think that with the whole woke circus finally losing its audience, the corporations that eagerly gulped down the rainbow-colored Kool-Aid would have snapped back to reality. Some did, cutting their losses and moving on, but a stubborn few are still clinging to the same self-destructive ideology that tanked their profits and shredded their credibility. That's where Bill Maher steps in, the sharp-tongued, battle-tested critic of all things woke, charging right back into the fire to finish what he started. And this time, he didn't just talk about it. He struck the match live on air, torching the hypocrisy for everyone to see.
The opposite of what you always were, you have to change your name. It's become a trend in America these days, morphing into something completely different from what you were founded as, but still pretending you're the old you. TLC stands for the Learning Channel. They used to have shows like Learn to Read and Ready, Set, Learn. Here's some of their present and recent offerings. Cake Boss, Gypsy Sisters, Toddlers and Tiaras, Extreme Couponing, What Not to Wear, My Teen is Pregnant and So Am I. 1,000-Pound Sisters and Alaskan Women Looking for Love. And that's just the shows about the Palins.
Maher kicked things off by tearing into TLC, once known as the Learning Channel, for completely losing its way. What began as a network meant to educate and inspire, he argued, has devolved into a spectacle of woke absurdity. The thought-provoking documentaries and science shows that once broadened minds have been replaced with reality TV that glorifies unhealthy lifestyles, turns chaos into entertainment, and insists that romance should only happen between people who share the same political or social beliefs. His critique hit home. TLC didn't just drift off course, it threw its map and compass overboard. In chasing validation from the outraged crowd, the network abandoned curiosity in favor of conformity, transforming itself into a dim reminder of just how far corporate America will go to virtue signal its way into irrelevance.
A in A&E stands for arts. Seriously, they used to show The Symphony. Now they have Deep Fried Dynasty, Hoarders, Storage Wars, Ghost Hunters, and Psychic Kids. You know, for people who find the Learning Channel too intellectual.
Remember when the A in A&E actually stood for arts? Seriously, there was a time when the network aired classical performances, thoughtful documentaries, and cultural storytelling. Fast forward to today, and it's all Duck Dynasty, Hoarders, Storage Wars, Ghost Hunters, and Psychic Kids, basically programming for anyone who thought the Learning Channel was too intellectual. Once a proud platform for creativity and culture, A&E has long since jumped aboard the same ideological bandwagon that's derailed much of modern media. The art is gone, replaced by a steady stream of so-called progressive narratives pretending to be insightful. What was once a home for imagination and depth has turned into a stage for confusion, sold as representation. It's as if the A disappeared entirely, leaving only the E, and now it stands for empty. Maher nailed the point. A network once dedicated to artistic excellence has become another casualty of the culture wars. In chasing viral moments and social validation, A&E sacrificed meaning for marketing, traded integrity for ideology, and swapped sincerity for spectacle.
History Channel has no history, and MTV has no music. I'm just saying, you can buy a petting zoo and turn it into a bondage dungeon, but you gotta change the sign.
Maher's absolutely right, and it's tough to disagree. These networks are drowning in their own hypocrisy, hiding behind brand names that don't reflect what they've become. If A&E is all about shallow, reality-based fluff now, then be honest, drop the A, and just call it E. And if TLC has traded education for chaos and cheap spectacle, Let's face it, it's no longer the learning channel, it's the chaos channel. Maher's critique cuts deep. Stop waving the banner of virtue or tradition when you've abandoned both. Either live up to the legacy that built your name or admit you've sold out to the corporate echo chamber of woke marketing. Because right now, these once respected channels aren't celebrating culture, they're live streaming their own downfall.
Your Playboy put a gay man on the cover, which I guess we're supposed to celebrate, even though it was 2021 and there's already a dozen magazines for gay guys, 13 if you count Martha Stewart Living. Do we really need LGBT representation in Playboy? There's a transgender teenager on every show on television except reruns of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea.
And then there's Playboy. Yes, that Playboy, somehow deciding it needed to hop aboard the woke bandwagon. The same publication that once built an empire on confidence, beauty, and unapologetic masculinity suddenly tried to reinvent itself through the lens of political correctness, rebranding to appeal to a new crowd. The result? Unintentional comedy. In a media world already flooded with forced representation, Playboy's attempt to appear progressive came off less as bold reinvention and more as a desperate plea for attention. In doing so, it alienated the very audience that made it a cultural icon, trading its trademark boldness for self-righteous posturing. Maher called it perfectly. Moves like this aren't about authentic inclusivity. They're about chasing trends and disguising it as virtue. Playboy didn't evolve, it capitulated. And in the process, it turned into the ultimate symbol of performative wokeness, a brand so obsessed with validation that it forgot what made it matter in the first place.
The same thing is going on with the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue, which now celebrates all kind of bodies except, the good kind. Was it really such a crime against humanity to have one magazine once a year that was about finding creative ways for supermodels to hide their nipples? Now it looks like it's edited by the Huffington Post.
The real goal behind this cultural shift was subtle on the surface but deeply lopsided underneath. Tear down masculinity while glorifying femininity. Somewhere along the way, being a man started getting treated like a defect that needed fixing, while femininity was placed on a pedestal beyond criticism. That's why you constantly hear about toxic masculinity, but never toxic femininity. The narrative became a convenient tool to shame men for being confident, ambitious, or strong. You can see it everywhere. TV shows filled with perfect, wise mothers paired with clueless, goofy dads who can't manage the simplest task without help. The message isn't shouted, but it's steady and unmistakable. Men are the problem, women are the solution. Maher called it out precisely. This isn't balance or equality, it's cultural revisionism. Masculinity hasn't just been sidelined, it's been mocked, watered down, and reshaped into something fearful and apologetic, a version too hesitant to stand proud.
Valentine's Day, which was always a day to celebrate coupledom. It wasn't complicated. Flowers, chocolates, blah, blah. And yet, every year now, I more and more hear this idea that Valentine's Day is also a day to celebrate being alone. Be your own Valentine. That's right, on the one day was specifically set aside to honor bonding between two people. Don't do that. Make it about the opposite of that. Be your own Valentine. Get your own cheap, stale chocolates at CVS.
Maher then turned his attention to Valentine's Day, and his take was downright hilarious. What used to be a lighthearted celebration of love, connection, and shared affection has been hijacked by the woke brigade and stripped of its charm. Instead of cherishing romance, today's version glorifies loneliness, turning being single into a political statement or badge of empowerment. Want a partner? According to this new logic, that somehow makes you needy, weak, or behind the times. Maher had a field day tearing into the absurdity. A holiday once about affection and closeness has been rebranded into a self-congratulation campaign. The warmth of roses and chocolates has been replaced with hashtags and hollow affirmations. What was once about genuine connection is now another casualty of ideological overreach. And Maher isn't about to let anyone forget how ridiculous it's become.
Boy Scouts of America used to be an organization for boys because girls have cooties. But now the Boy Scouts accept girls, which I guess is inclusive, but it ignores the very important need for boys to sometimes get together as boys to fart in a sleeping bag and laugh at that, which girls don't find funny. It also ignores the fact that there has always also been a scout troop for girls. You may have heard of it, the Girl Scouts.
The woke movement has a funny way of ignoring plain old common sense. Take the Boy Scouts, for example. For generations, there were two respected organizations, Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, each with its own mission, values, and way of shaping young minds. But apparently that balance wasn't good enough. In the name of inclusion, girls had to be brought into the Boy Scouts. Why? The Girl Scouts weren't exclusive or lacking in opportunity. They already had a proud, time-tested legacy. But the woke mindset has a habit of fixing things that were never broken. Maher pointed out the absurdity perfectly. What began as inclusion has turned into intrusion. It's not about fairness anymore. It's about erasing boundaries and distinctions that once had purpose and logic. The result? Confusion, division, and the gradual unraveling of institutions that once taught discipline, teamwork, and leadership. All of it sacrificed for the illusion of progress.
Anything just be what it is anymore? Weight Watchers used to be a club for people to lose weight, back when that was a good thing. Now we're so through the looking glass that obesity, the absolute undeniable #1 cause for ill health and death in America, is called body positivity. And people are shamed for losing weight. It happened to Adele. Weight Watchers is so intimidated, they changed their name to WW. Shh. Why not just call yourselves Wait, Don't Tell Me?
The body positivity movement. One of the few woke crusades that almost earns a bit of sympathy. At first, it had good intentions, promoting self-acceptance, confidence, and freedom from impossible beauty ideals. But, as Maher points out, like so many things touched by the woke movement, it veered completely off track. What began as a campaign for self-love quickly turned into a glorification of unhealthy lifestyles, where raising real health concerns was suddenly labeled as fat phobia. Maher didn't sugarcoat it. He called it exactly what it is, a ticking time bomb dressed up as empowerment. You can't claim to care about well-being while celebrating habits that actively harm the body. Facts, science, and logic were tossed aside to make room for feel-good slogans and emotional validation. In the end, the movement collapsed under the weight of its own contradictions. Because no matter how catchy the hashtags or how inspiring the rhetoric, unhealthy can't be rebranded as healthy. And deep down, everyone knows that reality eventually calls the bluff.
Taking a case, ACL lawyers should consider if the case might cause offense to marginalized groups, or if a potential client's values are contrary to our values. Contrary to our values? Your values are free speech and the First Amendment. Those are your values. Your whole purpose in life is not to be worried about offense to marginalized groups, because we understand that free speech is an even more important value than never being offended.
Exactly. When did the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, proud, start worrying more about hurt feelings than protecting free speech? This was the organization once celebrated for defending expression of any kind, no matter how controversial or unpopular. Their mission used to be crystal clear: safeguard the right to speak freely, especially when it made others uncomfortable. But somewhere along the line, that mission got hijacked. A handful of ideological activists slipped into leadership, and the ACLU's iron spine started to bend. The once fearless defenders of liberty turned into cautious referees, deciding which voices deserve protection and which didn't. Maher didn't mince words. An institution that once stood for courage and constitutional integrity has now become a stage for pandering politics. The ACLU stopped defending freedom and started defending feelings, proof that even the strongest institutions can rot from within when ideology outweighs principle. Maher's larger message couldn't be clearer. Wokeness isn't progress. It's cultural decay disguised as moral virtue. From TV networks and magazines to scouting groups and civil rights organizations, institutions built on purpose and principle have been overtaken by hypocrisy. They preach inclusion, but reject common sense, praise authenticity while censoring dissent, and glorify fragility while mocking strength. Maher's crusade isn't about left or right. It's about restoring sanity. It's a reminder that tearing down tradition doesn't make you enlightened. It makes you lost. When every cultural pillar caves to outrage, what's left isn't growth. It's chaos wearing a mask of compassion. And that's where Maher stands. Bold, unfiltered, and unafraid to say it on live TV.